I was holding the world record for highest number of robotic surgeries done in 3 consecutive months. I have designed with a prominent company in the US called Captiva. It beats the design of the best-selling SI fusion implant in the US. I read the Quran every day when I drive to work, and you'll also see a lot of doctors' jobs just disappear. Integration of AI. I was number 1 in my medical school class. Very important person in Abu Dhabi about a child who was on the verge of death. If this child does not get operated on, she will die. So his response was, there's nobody around who's willing to take this case on. Without hesitation, I said, yes, I will.
Dr. Abdul Salam Al Belushi, a pioneering Emirati neurosurgeon who has redefined the field of minimally invasive robotic spine surgery. Dr. Al Belushi is an American board certified and serves on the board of several prestigious medical organizations in the US, reflecting his influence and dedication to advancing global healthcare standards with over 25 years of experience, including 16 years of training and practice in the United States. As humans, when we do a venture, a business, we have an idea and it fails, it destroys us. And then we have to come back. But no, you're dealing with human lives. How do you come back?
Never to minimize a
Welcome back, Alpha Squad, to another inspiring episode of the Alpha Talks Show, the #1 fastest growing show in the region. Today, we are privileged to have an extraordinary Alpha guest, Dr. Abdul Salam Al Belushi, a pioneering Emirati neurosurgeon who has redefined the field of minimally invasive robotic spine surgery. Dr. Al Belushi is an American board certified and serves on the board of several prestigious medical organizations in the US, reflecting his influence and dedication to advancing global healthcare standards with over 25 years of experience, including 16 years of training and practice in the United States. Dr. Al Belushi has not only touched lives through his expertise in neurosurgery and spinal surgery, but also through his passion for innovation and patient care. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Abdul Salam Al Belushi to the Alpha Talks Show. Doctor, it's a pleasure and honor to have you today. It's really an honor and it's a pride to have you on the Alpha Talks Show.
Thank you for the invite. Glad to be here, actually.
Same here. Doctor, let's start with, I usually have a nugget question that I start the show with, which is, people will see the graphics, the design, the headline, the title, and they will think that's extremely interesting episode. What can you promise them today to gain if they gave us their time?
I will give them an insight into an average person's interest in desiring to make a huge impact in people's lives and to be successful through sheer grit, tenacity, perseverance, and also a glimpse of the journey it took to that success.
I love that. Let's start with, how do you feel today? You've been in, I think, back-to-back meetings, back-to-back interviews, coming for a week from the US. Oh, how do you feel?
It's definitely exhausting, but compared to what I have been exposed to in the US in training, it is a cakewalk.
Wow.
During my training, on average, I worked around 120 hours a week.
Wow.
To give you any perspective, an average American works 40 hours a week.
Oh my God.
And to do that for 7 consecutive years, it really shows what you're made of.
Exactly. True. In a nutshell, who are you from your perspective? In a nutshell, I'll dig deep, but
I feel, an average Emirati with a huge passion to make a difference in people's lives and to hopefully create a path for others to reach that pinnacle of success by following some real basic foundational rules throughout their lives.
I'm super looking forward to get deep in the conversation. You are a pioneer in neurosurgeon, right? What drove you from the beginning towards the medical field?
There were 2 separate instances. I didn't want to be a doctor in the beginning because I didn't know much about medicine. I actually wanted to do computer science. But I think I probably had an element of Asperger's syndrome, undiagnosed. Asperger's syndrome, for those of you who don't know about it, is an element of autistic or autism.
Okay.
And high functioning autism patients can be called Asperger's. And for those, their intellectual capacity can be very high, but sometimes they may be misunderstood. So as a child, it would take me very little time to get my assignment done. And I would just literally memorize everything that comes through me in terms of interaction. My father would say, Abdul Salam, why don't you do your homework? And I'm like, I'm done. Why don't you do that? I was like, I'm done. How about this something else? I'm done. And I still remember him saying, okay, well, if you come in the first 3 positions in your class, then we'll get you this. I came third. And then he said, well, you need to come second and I'll give you this. I came second. And then he told me come first. I came first. And that journey just persisted. And in my high school, there was basic requirements for biology, which I had completed, and I had free time, so I would dig into the deep or extended version of that, which was not required reading. And I came across a study of a hormone called antidiuretic hormone, and I found that fascinating. And I came across a physician who was very well renowned. I'm not going to name the person. In the presence of my father, I asked him the question about the role for antidiuretic hormone, and he got it completely wrong. And I corrected him. My father saw the interaction. Next day, my father came to me and asked me, son, have you thought about a career in medicine? And I was like, not really. It's like, well, he knew that I had something in me that an average kid did not. This is a 13, 14-year-old kid having an interaction with an adult physician who is experienced and very successful. That's when he basically asked me to consider medicine. And the second story that culminated my interest in becoming a doctor was when my youngest brother, Hamdan, Allah yarhamah, was a victim of hit-and-run car accident by a drunk driver. And I was the one who picked him up. I listened to his chest. I heard his heart pounding. And I picked him up, I took him to my cousin's car and drove him to the hospital, thinking that miracles happen, you know. Heart is working, he's going to be fine, that's fine. I was an athlete my entire high school and played college soccer. So for me, I thought after I'm done with my athletic competition, I'd come back and Hamdan will be back and life goes back. He unfortunately passed away. And so that was just another thing that I felt was something I couldn't quite understand. And it just created more of a curiosity for me to pursue a career in the field of neurosurgery, because I believe you probably had a head injury that went undiagnosed. And without the diagnosis of that injury, you won't get the appropriate treatment, or the treatment is initiated, but in a delayed fashion. But it was a positive force and direction in leading me to consider a career in medicine.
A quick note, before we jump into this episode, I find this incredibly intriguing. On the back end of our YouTube channel, it says around 75% of you who watch this channel frequently over the lifetime of this channel haven't yet hit the subscribe button. I just wanted to ask you for a favor. It helps this channel so much if you choose to just subscribe. It helps us invite guests that give you great value. It helps us scale the production and as well makes this show bigger and bigger for you. So if I will ask you just one favor, and if you enjoyed the previous episodes and you're currently enjoying this episode, could you please hit the subscribe button? I love your support. It's incredible to see all your comments and engagement, and we are just starting. I can't wait to go on this journey with you. Thank you so much, and I will repay this gesture by making sure that everything we do on this show makes it bigger, and better. I'm committed to do this promise. Do we have a deal? Thank you so much for subscribing. It means the world to me. Before I go into the career, for people listening to us, what is neurosurgery?
Neurosurgery is a field of medicine where physicians spend, at least in the US, at least 16 years of their life in understanding the various problems that occur in the nervous system, which can entail brain, spinal cord, spine, nerves, that could potentially be corrected with surgical maneuvering.
Okay. Wow. Let's go through your journey. What made you go to the US? And you stayed in the US and you became, I think, the only Emirati over
Who's-
there now.
well,
and on boards.
Yes. So I'm the only Emirati who is American board certified in neurosurgery.
And mashallah.
And my journey in the US started because at the time I didn't know if any Emirati had gone to the US to get their medical degree, the MD, the Doctor of Medicine degree. I knew US was number one in best healthcare and best technology, the newest innovations, the newest medicines that are patented. So, and I also knew it was kind of challenging. And growing up, I was the kid who was extremely stubborn. And the moment somebody told me I couldn't do something, I just had to go out of my way to prove them wrong. And when I went to the US, I had a bunch of Kuwaiti and Saudi friends, and each and every one of them said, this journey is not going to be easy. I'm not sure whether you can make it. Because there are thousands and thousands of applicants that apply for very few seats in the medical school in the US, and most of them are Americans, and most of them do not get in. And me coming in as a non-American, non-white,
True.
trying to compete in a merit-based system was an uphill battle. But alhamdulillah, I got it done, and I have plenty of very vivid stories to share with people who want to be fascinated.
What made you go through all this path? It is a very long path, first of all, and it's an uphill battle. What was your why behind it? Like, I will get to the end and I'll be the best, and I'll be the first in the region, and I.
Something about the concept of no pain, no gain. Something about the initial path of an uphill battle, just to have a smooth life after you beat all the odds. I can vividly remember the moment when I finished my undergrad, finished my medical school, finished my internship, finished my residency, finished my fellowship. And then I said, well, what else is there? And there really wasn't anything more challenging than what I had gone through. It felt very good.
True.
That's when I started my journey in pushing myself to the next level and being somebody beyond a neurosurgeon, being an entrepreneur,
True.
being a business owner, being an innovator, a person who designs and has patents, and being an author.
We'll talk about this. But why I'm asking you this question, because I lived majority of my life abroad. And I had to prove myself because it was really an uphill battle. And especially the moment that I wanted to say that I'm an Arab man that managed to do this and that over there, where in the beginning I was seen as nobody. That was the motive behind. Like, I spent 10 years in Russia. When I started, was absolutely nobody, treated as a non-white. And one of my motivation to push forward and get even like awarded by President Putin was, no, I want to say, like, I'm an Egyptian, I'm an Arab, and I managed to do that. Was that part of it? You want to show that I'm an Emirati, I'm an Arab?
I think there definitely was this element of trying to prove to everybody that I'm above average.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember very clearly that my maneuvering was not only just to beat them, was to smoke them.
Oof.
I remember in my world history class in undergrad, at the end of that class, there was a Jeopardy-like competition.
Yeah.
I didn't participate because I didn't know what the heck was going on, but I saw that there were people who came in and random questions were thrown about history. So come World History 2, I was ready.
Okay.
And this time, when that competition for Jeopardy was up, I literally nailed every single question, to the point that the professor had to throw in a random fake question that I didn't have the answer to. And I would have these American white boys and girls turn their head and see whether they'd call me Abdul. Abdul gets it or not. So I didn't get it because it was a fake question. But I literally smoked everybody in that competition. It felt good. And the same with medical school. I started medical school with the fear that I would fail, because everybody would just hammer the point in your head. It's not about getting into medical school. Well, fine, you got lucky, you got into medical school, but you had to finish medical school.
True.
Medical school in the U.S. is very tough. It's very concentrated, 4 years. And in the first semester, Foundation of Medicine, I worked really hard, and all I was trying to do is to fit in. At least I'm going to be the last guy graduating. I'll still be called a doctor. But alhamdulillah, come to find out that I had the top score in my medical school in that class. Now, the perspective in approaching medical school changed from being a survivor into being a beast.
Mm-hmm.
So it was no longer being a gazelle who is worried about a lion eating it. It's about being a lion.
From where? Look, it's very seldom I sit in a conversation and what hooks me, it's not your degrees, it's not what you achieved, is your mindset, even the words that you're saying. You understand, like, from where this came, this mindset? Because you were a sports person, or there is something that hit you back in the days, your mindset is, for me, is like unshakable. You understand what I'm coming?
I think, I don't know. I think faith has a lot of role in my life, believing in God, having Him part of. Also, I think perhaps being the middle child. We had come from a family of 8 kids.
Yeah.
And my parents not educated. My mom is just a homemaker. My dad is a telephone operator, just an average guy. But somehow I felt like I was different. I was wired different, and I analyze situations differently. And my opinions about different matters come out of the box. And I just always had this concept in myself to just push myself to the next level and to never be complacent in life. And that just led me to new heights, and I'm grateful to God for that.
If I circle back to your overall US journey, before we talk about your achievements over there, what were the main kind of obstacles you faced? You know why I'm asking you this question? Because a lot of people think, and even a lot of comments that I get, you became successful because you traveled. You became successful because you went to the US, correct? But nobody knows what, I would say, hell you passed through over there, versus you are in your comfort zone, next to your family, next to your friends, in your culture, accepted inside.
Yeah. I actually talked to many of my Marathi colleagues, and just recently, before my interview with Abu Dhabi TV, there was a young PhD candidate in Marathi, and the response he gave was quite remarkable. He said he likes it here because he went to undergrad in Britain and was out of his element, and he just was out of place. He just completely was uncomfortable with that being, so he had to come back, be close to comfort, and to get the education in a comfort zone. I feel comfort is my enemy. Mm-hmm. The moment I become comfortable, that's when I start like being complacent. That's when I quit growing, and my brain, I feel, is designed to just perpetually try to pursue new heights, new engagements. That's why, unlike most neurosurgeons, I'm into business. I'm into entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. I have several ventures. I have several partners. I'm an author, and I have patents. And and I don't want to be a leader who can create a massive impact in a positive way to the people around me. And that could be my colleagues, that could be everybody in this country, both citizens and residents of UAE. And I want to be in a position where I can one day look back and say, I lived most of my life being selfless. And that creates a lot of a lot of accomplishment, a feeling of accomplishment in my mind.
What we're going to talk about now is more about the achievements that you have achieved. And we're not talking about it from a bragging standpoint. We're talking about it from being proud. As an Emirati, the first Emirati, an Arab, made all these achievements over there. What are the achievements that you're proud of that you've achieved over there?
I mean, to just summarize overall education in the US, unlike most countries in the world, you cannot get into medical school right out of high school.
Yeah.
So you have to go through 4 years of undergraduate degree. Hopefully you'll score high. Hopefully you'll do a high score on a medical college admission test. Hopefully you've done plenty of research, hopefully plenty of volunteer, and then hopefully get into medical school, which is another 4 years. And then you have to go through 7 years of neurosurgery training. I was the only person in my medical school who got into neurosurgery. Nobody else did.
Ooh.
And then if you have to do an extra year of fellowship, 3 years of fellowship, whatever. So the minimum, you're looking at least 16 years of education.
Wow.
Right off the bat. And I think if your mindset is that, I'm sorry, what was the question?
I mean, like achievements.
The
like, for
achievements
example,
are-
I know
so-
that you created
yeah.
the minimal invasive.
So going
Yeah.
forward, did my undergrad in Kentucky, medical school in Ohio, internship at Cleveland Clinic, residency in Louisville, fellowship at Johns Hopkins University, which is #1 in the US in the field of neurosurgery. That itself is an accomplishment.
True.
And then I was in practice in state of North Dakota. I established the first center of excellence in the first hospital I went to. I was a chairman of neurosurgery at that hospital. And then I got recruited to a bigger hospital, level 1 trauma center. I established center of excellence there as well after I joined. They didn't have it before I was there. And I was the first ever to perform robotic spine surgery in the state of North Dakota. It still is on record. In 2019, I did the first surgery there. And I remember I had colleagues, other neurosurgeons, they were trying to make fun of me by saying, I go by Dr. Baker there because it's a shortened for my name, Abdul Baker.
Yeah.
My long name is Abdul Salam Al Belushi-a.
Yeah.
So they were like, Dr. Baker needs a robot to do the surgery. I was doing plenty of surgery without the robot. And right after I started doing the robot surgery, they all jumped in and started doing robot. And I was like, wow, you were making fun of me, and now you're doing the same surgery as I was doing. So it was a constant battle trying to prove myself with these white doctors. And just because you're white doesn't mean you're better than me.
True.
And then I had the honor of being called by one of a very important person in Abu Dhabi about a child who was on the verge of death. So they asked me, what is your opinion about this case? And I asked them, how did they even find me? Because that's when the journey starts about being recognized in UAE. They were like, it's confidential. We can't tell you how we found you, but we did. And would like your opinion about this case. And I said, it's very simply, if this child does not get operated on, she will die.
Oof,
And
to that extent.
To that extent, so it was pretty bad. So his response was, there's nobody around who's willing to take this case on. Would you consider taking this case on? Without hesitation, I said, yes, I will. But I need to get to her as soon as possible. So I immediately canceled 2 weeks of my clinic, my OR, and His Highness Sheikh Mansour's team of Abu Dhabi arranged a private jet for me. Immediately when I got back home from clinic, I went to Dallas, and from Dallas got into a private jet, and then get to New York, a second private jet, to Geneva, a third private jet, and I landed in presidential airport of Abu Dhabi, Bateen, at 2 o'clock in the morning, and then went directly to the hospital, did the surgery. Alhamdulillah, within 4 hours, completely removed the tumor and saved this child's life.
Oof.
That's when I got on the map. Then the team asked me, what else can you do to put UAE on the map? And I was like, this is my country. There's a lot I can do to put UAE in the map. I've been very busy in the US, very successful in the US. So I said one of the basic things we can do is perform first ever robotic spine surgery in UAE, which has never been done in Africa or Middle East. And we were competing with another Gulf country. We were going head to head about but nobody in that entire country had ever done robotic surgery. I'm an Emirati. I'd already had plenty of robotic experience. As a matter of fact, at the time, I was holding the world record for highest number of robotic surgeries done in 3 consecutive months. Ooh. So there were no competition to what I had to bring to the table. Alhamdulillah, the team bought the robot. I arranged a meeting with the European team and the American team. We came together and identified a very classic patients who had back pain, leg pain, inability to walk in Abu Dhabi, did the surgery, made history in March of 2022 and put UAE on the map.
Ooh. What does it mean, a robotic surgery versus a regular surgery?
Okay. So as times are changing, technology is changing. The certain types of procedures that used to take a long time is taking less time. Used to be very invasive are becoming less invasive. And modification of the technique and embracing technology improves outcome, decreases complication, and makes the recovery process very quick. Not all surgeries in the spine are done robotically. Mm-hmm. Certain surgeries done with a robot has a lower complication rate, specifically something called malposition of hardware. When we do surgeries in the back, we're literally putting screws in tiny areas of the bone, and if you're off by a little bit, you could cause a spinal cord injury, a nerve injury, you could paralyze a person. True. So getting the screw in accurately in the right position is super important, so you can prevent having to put the patient through another operation to correct that maneuvering. So robot has helped. Now, that doesn't mean all surgeries have to be done by robot. I mean, I've done most of my surgeries that I've done are non-robotically, and alhamdulillah, patients have turned out well. But this is a technology, and I try to embrace technology that is good, that is vetted, that is safe. And robotic surgery is safe. I
love that. And when you introduce yourself, you mentioned that you're an inventor as well. What kind of inventions you've created?
So I have several American patents, all patent pending. One is use of brain-computer interface and the use of exoskeleton to allow patients who's been paralyzed to walk again. So basically, all you have to do is think that I want to walk, and if you have the exoskeleton built in, the device would make you stand up. And if I need to walk, you're just thinking to walk, it would walk for you. Now, it's a patent. It's the idea that I have a patent on. I don't have a prototype yet because you need major investments for that. And by the same token, this idea came from allowing brain-computer interface to allow a patient who's been paralyzed, who's in a wheelchair, to move the wheelchair without having to move the remote, just wanting to go to the kitchen, and the mind basically moves the wheelchair in that direction. That's another patent. And the latest patent is something called a minimally invasive SI joint implant. SI joint is a joint that is between the spine and the pelvis. And oftentimes patients, as they get older, or if they get injury in that joint, they get excruciating pain in that joint. And to fix it, you have to put a device in that joint to immobilize that device, which immediately stops the pain. So in the U.S., there are very prominent companies that have made devices, but the design of the device that I have designed with a prominent company in the U.S. called Captiva, it beats the design of the best-selling SI fusion implant in the U.S. So I was hiding that idea because I didn't want to just give it away and somebody steals the idea and intellectual property rights are gone. But the moment I shared my idea with the engineer, that was enough. He was like, wow, that's a magic bullet, which addresses one implant that can be done in multiple different techniques done in a minimally invasive fashion so the patient can get up 10, 15 minutes after surgery and pretty much go home with little to no pain.
Doctor, since we're talking about the spinal cord, the back, I want you to give a couple of advices to people watching us and listening us to take care of their back and their spine. What are the basic things that people can do on their regular basis?
Sure. This is my field. I can literally talk for hours about this, but to really summarize some key points, people need to understand that if you don't take care of something, you will lose the function. And once you lose the function, it's lost forever. There are many things that give the spine its structural integrity. Okay. The disc, the ligaments, the tendons, the muscles. People get the tendency to go to the gym and try to be buff. They have their arms big, their pecs big, but nobody's taking care of their back. And the moment you do a squat, it just basically gives you a disc herniation and now you're out of commission. True. So focus on core body strengthening exercise, which is the abdominal muscle and the muscles that make up the spine.
Wow.
Second,
even the abdominal muscle
has
an
muscles.
effect.
Absolutely, because in the front,
True.
you know, and making sure that if you are sitting, sit properly. Do not bend your back when you're sitting. Do not stoop. Same with the neck. If you're lifting something, try to lift without bending your back. Bend your knees, bend your hip. And if you have to lift something, try to lift it and bring it to the center of your body. Center of gravity is here. Okay. So if you bring a center of the gravity, the force is distributed throughout the body, versus if you were to lift a weight away from the body and the force translates into the back. One of the basic things is to maintain a good weight.
Correct.
So we're born with discs that are nice, plump, filled with fluid. The more you weigh, you're going to start exerting more forces in the disc. And it starts collapsing. It becomes dry. It causes pain. You don't want to move. If you don't want to move, you start gaining weight. It becomes a vicious cycle.
Exactly.
You're not really helping. And healthy exercise, aerobic, anaerobic, is always a good idea for overall spine health, your psychological health, physical health. And lastly, nutrition.
I wanted to ask about that.
Yeah. So having balanced meals, avoiding food that are not healthy is all important. And then to top it off, obviously, anything that relates to unnecessary products that we consume, be it illegal drugs, smoking, vaping, you name it. All those have negative effects to our body.
Wow. What kind of supplements people can take? Generous, like we know, like take vitamin C, not to get a flu.
Sure.
What are supplements to help the back, the
So
spine?
I don't have any, vested interest or stock in any of the supplement companies. But I think overall, if you eat a balanced diet and take a multivitamin and expose yourself to the sun to get some tan, to get vitamin D, which is then used to absorb calcium and strengthen the bone, I think that's good enough.
That's good.
You don't need to go out of your way, buy some expensive supplements. If you are going to expose yourself to the sun, make sure you use SPF protection, because you don't want to gain vitamin D and also gain cancer at the same time by melanoma. And everything has to be balanced, nothing in extreme.
True. So there is no any kind of like go take this supplement is important because
No.
we live in a life that
Everybody's
Exactly.
swearing by. You have to understand the concept of placebo. When they do studies in the U.S., if I have a magic pill that is used to treat high blood pressure, what they do is they get 1,000 people, and amongst 1,000 people, they give 500 of them the actual drug, and then the other 500 they give them a sugar pill, but they don't tell them it's fake. Interestingly enough, the people who get the fake drug, a significant chunk of them, their blood pressure drops.
the placebo thing comes in.
Yeah. So placebo, although it's not a real drug, but psychologically, you've just won the heart of the patient.
True.
By the same token, you can say that this supplement is magic, and oh my God, it made me feel good. There are a lot of things that can potentially make you feel good. That's why the mind is very powerful. If you have control over your mind, you have control over a lot of aspects of your life.
True.
That you can control and not be deterred with all that hustle and bustle that's going around you, and not let that affect your mind.
True. If I'm gonna say, what is your vision for UAE and the Middle East overall?
My vision is to create a neuroscience center of excellence to provide cutting-edge treatment that is currently provided in best hospitals in the US to be made available to the citizens and residents of UAE, to allow UAE to be a medical tourism hub,
Wow.
to attract patients from all over the Gulf and Asia and Africa and also America. Currently, I have Americans flying from Indiana, Colorado, South Carolina, Tennessee to come see me.
Mm-hmm.
I've had patients drive 10 hours to simply see me. I've had folks fly from the country Belize to come see me, from Saudi Arabia to come see me. I'm grateful to God for that trust and honor I've earned from these patients. But I think this comes along with it a huge responsibility that you have to continue to do the right thing. And if I'm able to do that in the US, what's stopping me
Doing it here.
from emulating that same example, from being one of their own citizens to create that structure in UAE for people to come seek that care to me? And I believe I will have patients come from far to see me.
I love that. Doctor, you're not just a doctor. You're an entrepreneur as well. What kind of ventures do you have, or you invest in, or you created? And what made you not to stop at the doctor's path? And also, like, I'm a businessman at the end also.
Sure. For the first 7 years after finishing my training, I was a hospital employed doctor, which means you're just like a salaried person working for a bigger corporation. What triggered one day was I had a patient in her 20s, a nurse, who was involved in a car accident. She basically unbuckled her seatbelt because the child was crying. So
Yeah.
she twisted to take care of the child. And her husband was driving the car, and all of a sudden a deer came in front. So the car swerved to avoid the deer, landed in a ditch, and came back. So in a very acute fashion, she snapped her back and became paralyzed. So I came to see her in the hospital in an intensive care unit, and I was devastated to see this young person's life potentially forever to be changed, to live to be living her life in a wheelchair. I told her, this is a very devastating injury. I will do whatever I can to help you. And the type of surgery I did was a very risky surgery. I've done plenty of these, alhamdulillah, with great success. This involved doing a spinal cord decompression from the back to a piece of bone that is shoved from the front.
Ooh.
So I had to drill down the bone on both sides and reconstruct the spine, take the pressure off the spinal cord, and stabilize it from up and down. Alhamdulillah, 2 days after the surgery, the patient's function completely came back, which means she stood, she walked. I literally had tears in my eyes when I saw that. I was just moved by that. So she wanted to provide a testimonial about her experience in being treated by me. And the hospital fought me to not have that testimonial published.
Ooh.
And that's the moment I said, I'm in charge of my own journey.
What was the reason you think? Like,
They wanted to take the credit
okay.
because the hospital
As
did
a hospital, not the
hospital did
doctor.
the surgery, not the doctor. I have no problem
True.
recognizing the hospital for where the surgery was done.
Recognize my work.
But I was a surgeon. The hospital couldn't have done the surgery without me. And that's when I noticed that I needed to take a different path, a path that I can control, the path that I can grow from and to new heights. The moment I switched my mindset from being just a doctor, then to an entrepreneur and a businessman and a doctor, a lot of opportunities came my way. And then I had opportunities to collaborate with different people. I had liberal opportunities to provide education on social media. After I posted that video, and I wasn't even planning on posting that video until I had a person who is a PA student who came around learning from me, and I had a very specific way of teaching. I like to dumb things down so that even a third grader would understand complex concepts. He was very impressed with that. So he went and bought me something in the background and demanded that I make a TikTok video. And I paid him for what he bought, and I reluctantly posted that video, and lo and behold, it went viral. 1 million views. That's when everybody started pouring. It was like, tell us about this. What about this? I had this condition. Can you do this? So then I started posting one video after another, one video after another. And then I could liberally have my patients start talking about their experiences. How were you before? How were you after? And that wasn't my first case where a paralyzed person walk again. I have plenty of those.
Wow.
How
do you feel? I can't even believe, like as Seif, who's trying to impact the people, make them successful, give them some knowledge and wisdom, that fulfills me. But in your case, you make people, not about being successful, forget success, able to live. How does it come? Like, how? You told me you teared, but like, oh my God.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah, ever since I went to the US, I've never had alcohol in my life. I've never done drugs. I don't smoke. I'm addicted to caffeine, if that's a vice. But I think my high is that experience. A person who's in the verge of death, and I've had plenty of those, and then they come to me, and I feel like I just need to do something to bring them back. Now, not all cases are success, because some people are gone too far, where there's nothing you can do to bring them back. But I certainly give it the best I got, and I've had, with the blessing of God, grace of God, I've been successful in vast majority of these cases that would have otherwise either died or permanently become disabled for the rest of their lives.
You know, the mentality and the psychology and the mindset. If I want to flip it and I ask, of course you saved a lot of lives. And sometimes you face situations when you said that it went too far and the patient didn't do it, couldn't make it. How do you pass this level? As humans, when we do a venture, a business, we have an idea and it fails, it destroys us. And then we have to come back.
Yeah.
But no, you're dealing with human lives. How do you come back and say like...
I think after doing this type of work, you start building resilience and never to minimize a human life, it definitely hurts, but we're trained to not show our pain, and it's all held inside. I've had a handful of cases where patient was already brain dead, and when a person is brain dead, there is no surgery you can do, because surgery in that setting is futile. You wouldn't want to put them through an unnecessary operation because you know the outcome is not going to be good. And as a neurosurgeon, we're trained to be stoic and to keep our feelings in check, and not let our emotions come in the way. But it definitely hurts when you're not able to help people who are gone too far.
Yeah, true. If you're going to give an advice for people who are starting their career in medicine, what you're going to tell them?
I think the drive for medicine has to come from passion for medicine.
Not by culture, because we live in a culture, either you are a doctor, an engineer, or
Yes, I think if you have true passion in doing something meaningful and leading a selfless life, it's a very rewarding field. And people don't get into medicine to get rich. People get into medicine to make a difference in human life. And so long as you don't lose track of that passion, I think you're going to do very well. I have had encounters from colleagues whose parents wanted him to be a doctor.
Yeah.
And to this day, they're Americans. I've seen them. They're miserable. They hate their lives. So my advice to everybody who is considering to get into medicine for other than passion of medicine, do not get into medicine. It's a long road. It's an arduous road. It is paved with a bunch of thorny leaves in the path, not rose petals. But these thorny leaves makes you bleed, makes you get injured, but also makes you stronger as you come out the other end.
True. What made you successful to that level? What kind of attribute or character, or what made you successful? What you think contributed to your success?
I think several things. Faith is a very important part of my life. Reminding myself of God is very important to me. Praying to Him before I do any surgery is important to me. It's good for my psychological well-being. And I had a commitment. I prayed Salat al-Istikhara before I went to the US. I specifically remember asking God, if you feel like my journey in the US and becoming a doctor is going to be a good one, please help me get there. Because my intentions are to come back and serve my fellow Emiratis and the residents of this country. If you feel like my journey going to the US is going to be turning me into a vile person and away from you, I would rather die a poor man, but an honorable man.
Mm-hmm.
And so God is an integral part of my success. I have several philosophies. One of the philosophies is treat the patients like you would treat your loved ones. Then it takes the ambiguity out of how you deal with people. There was one encounter I had when there was a physician. He didn't tell me he was a doctor. He came to me with a very complex, rare condition. I just let him speak. He kept on speaking and told me that he's seen a lot of different doctors. He's also seen a neurosurgeon, but he's heard great things about me. So I wanted to hear what your thoughts are. Once he was done speaking, I told him he has this condition. It was a rare condition called Parsonage-Turner syndrome. And I told him why he had that condition. And he immediately just paused and just stared at me, just in awe, not realizing, wow, I finally have a solution. He finally nailed it. And I also told him that he doesn't need surgery, which was a second opinion he had, because the first neurosurgeon said you need to have surgery. And he walks away, me just going about my normal life until he submits a Google review. And he was probably the longest Google review I've ever had. He explains his journey as a physician, board certified physician and who's been through all these different doctors, none of them picked it up. And literally within 2 minutes of him explaining the condition, I nailed the diagnosis. Not only that, I treated him with respect. I did not want to jump into surgery. And regardless of who he was, he got the best treatment I could give him. And if you do the same for everybody, you'll end up somewhere well.
True.
And I think if your philosophies are based on core positive characteristics, you'll end up well. And I think I strongly feel like there was this gal who flew from Indiana to Texas to simply ask me a few questions. And that was enough. And I asked her, was it worth it to fly all the way to Indiana to ask me? He was like, absolutely, it was worth it. You've given me a peace of mind that I wouldn't have otherwise gotten. So providing that education, being honest and being realistic, really creates a product at the end that is unique. And most neurosurgeons are not known to have emotional intelligence. We're very smart. Usually most neurosurgeons are at the top of their class. IQ-wise, they'll blow through anybody. But EQ-wise, emotional quotient-wise, that's not necessarily the case. We're also known to be pompous, arrogant, and full of ourselves, and sometimes with terrible bedside manners. I still remember the day when I started my training. The nurse made a comment, this guy is nice. Unlike the other guys, he's different. And then the chief nurse said, wait until he becomes a chief resident. His true colors will come out. So that caught me off guard. I was like, wow, I'm supposed to become a terrible guy when I get up there in ranking. I held it to heart, and I kept my emotions in check, kept my behavior in check. And alhamdulillah, I think to this day, I feel at least that I'm the same person. I've maintained having a respectful interaction with everybody around me, be it somebody who is more powerful than me or somebody who's below me, because everybody needs to be respected equally. And I think a combination of all these traits over the years, that my faith was an important part of me learning them. My parents and my upbringing were critical in inculcating these traits in my life, which has led to who I am now.
I love it. How do you define success then? What's success to you?
I think success in my world is living a dignified life for a higher purpose than yourself.
Wow. And if I ask you, as a doctor, successful doctor, do you have any routines that you follow?
Oh yeah. I have a lot of routines I follow. I live by certain principles. I mean, I'm a Muslim, and I practice in Muslim. I pray my 5 times, and I'm a strict follower in the 5 pillars of Islam. I'm not a super strict Muslim, I would say. I think I'm kind of a liberal Muslim. But faith is important to me. I remember God. I meditate. I read the Quran every day when I drive to work, and I work out very routinely, and I eat healthy. I have thousands of acquaintances, but I have a very small core group of friends that are highly quality, and I try to push them to newer heights. They try to push me to newer heights, and I don't let that circle get too big. And that keeps me in check and keeps me honest.
If I ask you to date, what is the favorite failure you had? A failure that you're grateful for?
I've had a lot of failures.
But grateful, and it changed everything, kind of.
Throughout medical school, I had all A's except 1 B. I was number 1 in my medical school class until I got that B. It broke my heart.
Oof.
And I was one of very few people who were hand selected by medical school in my second year of medical school to teach the first year medical students, because if you're at the top of the game, they get the best students to teach the struggling students. And the only B I got in my medical school transcript is in psychiatry. I'm not good at gray. I'm all black and white. And the reason for that was I was busy teaching the medical students about anatomy, pathology, and things that they were struggling with, and I didn't really pay attention to the psychiatry section. So I got my B there. I felt it was devastating. I felt like I was the worst student in the world, that I felt I was going to be a huge failure. In retrospect, I didn't need to even get all A's. I could have gotten all B's, and I could have just did the same thing as I did now. In life, failures don't define who you are. If you fail, so long as you're willing to get back up for the fight, that makes you a stronger person. And I wouldn't change a thing about how I evolved to where I'm at now, because these failures
made
me who I am.
If I flip it, and I'm sure you have a lot, but if I ask you the proudest moment to date?
I think like every surgery that I did in a patient who was at the verge of dying or being disabled was success. But I really feel when I got that call from one of the top people in Abu Dhabi about to save this girl's life, who's a child who would have otherwise died, and to get the tumor out and to take the pressure off the brain and save her life was just it was a very good feeling. It was a very good feeling, because I've done this in US time and time again, but to come when my countryman calls me when I save a life in my own country, that's just pure bliss, basically.
We are in the Alpha Talk show, and we have a question that I ask you. How do you define an alpha? What's an alpha for you?
I think an alpha is independent, is stoic, is a natural leader, is an undeterred individual who is ambitious and can sometimes be ruthless. I hope for a higher purpose than to be selfish.
I love that. Man, female, or female, or man only?
I think there are alpha male, there's alpha females. I mean, I've seen both. And I think the people I have in my life, I think are alpha. And we feed off of each other's energy.
True.
And we allow for people to grow in that sense.
We have a section called the Alpha Quickfire. So I'll ask you a couple of quick questions. And what's a morning routine you must have?
I have to pray. I have to read Surah Al-Waqi'ah and Mulk, and I have to have my caffeine.
I agree on that. What's the most influential mentor you had?
The former vice chairman of vascular neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins, Dr. Hank Nada.
Wow. One piece of advice for aspiring surgeons or healthcare innovators?
Live a life of purpose, and let that purpose guide you to what you need to get to for your goal.
Biggest lesson you've learned from performing the first robotic spine surgery in the Middle East and Africa?
That is just a beginning of the journey, and there is so much more to come.
The biggest misconception people have about robotic surgery?
That the robot itself will do the surgery and human is not involved.
And it's completely wrong.
It's wrong.
Best networking tip you've learned over the years?
Have the initiative to break the ice, crack a joke, say something, Because if you don't say something, you've just missed the opportunity to create a relationship that could have otherwise changed your life.
In 3 words, how would your closest colleagues describe you?
Honest, tenacious, ambitious.
An extra question not here. Is there something that somebody has told you that really hurted you and you've never forgotten?
Somebody from my family told me that I shouldn't even go to the US because I can't make it.
Proved everyone wrong. What was the alpha best advice you've ever received in your career and your journey? An advice that really oof.
Probably 1% rule. That if you were to improve in whatever aspect of life you want to get better by 1%, at the end of 1 year, you are 37 times better.
Oof, correct. There was a question asked in the quick fire. I want to focus on it a little bit. Literally, people think robotic surgery is the doctor is not needed, the robot is doing everything, and sometimes people get scared of that. Can you just destroy this
Misconception,
belief?
yeah. I think there are different types of robots that are involved in medicine, and we are coming to a generation where you also do robotic surgery remotely. Like you're in one country or a different continent, and the surgery can be done in a different continent.
To that level.
To that level. Not in spine surgery or neurosurgery yet. I think at this moment, we do not have any robot that can do entire surgeries by themselves. However, could we come to a point where many of the smaller, less invasive procedures may be done by robot under human supervision in the beginning? That's possible.
Okay. That people need to worry about that. I mean, like having a robot doing the operation or the involvement of the doctor. Like as a regular person, how the doctor is involved is like programming the robot or
Yes.
Programming the robot.
Yes, you program the robot. You tell the robot that I want you to do this specific task only.
Okay.
And that's it.
And you supervise.
You supervise it. And then in my world, before I adopted robotic spine surgery, I had multiple redundancies in my protocol because I needed to make sure that not only did I continue with the same pathway as I would have in confirming that the job of the robot was done, I had the robot to add another layer of accuracy.
Ooh.
So we verified it with x-rays and both before, during, and after the robotic spine surgery on multiple occasions until we were very comfortable with the quality assurance of this robot, allowing it to be then integrated in a routine basis for spine cases.
Do you believe in the future a robot can handle everything in such, like you completely, like, you know, become like McDonald's?
Yeah. I think robotic technology is really evolving rapidly. And with the integration of artificial intelligence, I think we're going to get to new heights. And you'll see a lot of changes in medicine. And you'll also see a lot of doctors' jobs just disappear because of
It's happening, it's going to happen.
integration of AI.
And it doesn't affect the quality because that's health at the end, life or death.
Exactly. I think if anything, the quality would get better. We know for fact when the role of a radiologist, for instance, a doctor who looks at x-rays and CAT scans and MRI, when they did head-to-head study with AI versus a human radiologist in identifying precancerous lesions, the AI performed far better than the doctor who are radiologists.
Oof.
Now, there are lots of caveats to these studies, but it's a very promising sign that integration of AI in improving health and providing health care is going to reach new heights.
Looking forward. We have a section called the Alpha Quick Choices. So I'll ask you this or that, and you pick one. Traditional surgery or robotic surgery?
Robotic surgery.
Training in the US or advancing healthcare in the UAE? It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Advancing care in UAE.
Patient care or medical innovation for you? Yeah, tough ones.
Patient care.
Surgery or research?
Surgery.
UAE as a medical hub or global medical innovator?
UAE as a medical tourism hub.
That's an interesting one. Performing surgery in Burj Khalifa or at the top of the Empire State Building?
Burj Khalifa, sure. I'll take that. I don't have any alliances to the US over my own country, yeah.
Of course. Training future surgeons at Dubai's top hospitals or giving a TED talk at Harvard?
Training in Dubai.
You love giving back.
Yeah.
Celebrating a medical breakthrough at Dubai Opera or under the lights of Broadway?
Dubai.
I love that. Doctor, is there anything you want to add to the conversation that we had and you think that we missed and it's important for you to share it with the audience?
I think one question I had in my TikTok live session that a follower asked me, can you tell me how you how did you deal with failure or overcoming failure? And my response to that was, so long as you have self-belief, you're going to be just fine. And a very good analogy is my journey into getting into a US medical school and to earn the Doctor of Medicine degree, MD. Because everybody looks at research, everybody looks at data, and if you looked at the traditional approach of a doctor becoming a doctor in the US, you'd be reading certain literature and say, well, you need to have this GPA, this extracurricular activity, this MCAT score for you to make it through medical school successfully. I struggled with MCAT, medical college admission tests, the verbal section. English is not my first language. So I did not score high, so I didn't get into medical school right off the bat. And I tried it multiple times until I got it. Because one thing I knew about myself, I may not be the best, but I would never give up. And that self-belief just kept me through this journey to never give up until I get exactly what I want to get. And not only did I get in, I defied all odds that these literature were talking about. I didn't just get in and make it barely through medical school. I was among the top of my medical school. I'm a member of Alpha Omega Alpha Honor Society. Anybody who's graduated in the US medical school knows what that organization is. You're the top dog if you're graduating from US medical school. And this tells me that I didn't necessarily have to rely on this literature to guide me, so long as I was willing to go through the motion and overcome whatever came to make me successful. My days were starting at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't get back to my apartment until 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And I was willing to work as hard as I possibly could just to prove these people wrong. And I was successful in doing that. So if you have doubt about whether or not you can do it, so long as you have self-belief, you can make it happen.
I love that. You're a motivator as well. Doctor, we have a section in the Alpha Talks called the Alpha Talks Memoir.
Okay.
Which is, once we finish recording, you will be writing your experience in the Alpha Talks show. And another thing is that you write a question to the next Alpha guest.
Okay.
Which means you will answer a question from the previous Alpha guest. I don't know the question.
Okay.
So nobody knows who wrote the question, but it's a way of communicating Alpha together.
Sure.
Are you ready for that?
Yeah.
What's one unusual piece of advice you would give to someone starting their journey as entrepreneurs? You know, these days entrepreneurship is becoming like a trend.
Yeah.
So everybody wants, I want a job to be an entrepreneur. It's not like that.
I think to become an entrepreneur, it is not about the destination, it's about the journey. You have to buckle up for a long, arduous road. So long as you're willing to do what needs to be done, the reward at the end is well worth it.
True. I love it. Doctor, what will be the last message you want to leave the audience with today?
Live a life of purpose, give more than take, and go help a fellow human being to reach heights, if not your height, but at least to a newer height, and give them hope.
Doctor, it's been a pleasure and an honor to have you with us today. And we look forward that you visit us in Dubai and UAE overall more frequent. And I'm sure the next time you'll be in Dubai, you will exactly achieve what you want and what you mentioned as a vision for you. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you for the
Thank
invite.
you very
Appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you.
That wraps another inspiring episode of today's show. I hope that this episode has ignited your inner alpha and left you feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to conquer any challenge that comes your way. Remember, alphas aren't born, they're made. It isn't about dominating others, it's about embracing your authenticity, leading with integrity, and making a positive impact on the world. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the Alpha Talks on your favorite podcast platform. Leave us a review and share the podcast with your fellow alphas. Also connect with us on social media at Seif El Hakim. Share your thoughts, insight, and stories of personal and business growth with us. Let's create a movement of alphas supporting one another. The world needs more alphas like you exactly. Until next time, stay bold, stay driven, and stay alpha.